one who tears in his anger, one who tears for his anger or is dead, for his dead, or for act destructively are exempt. The one who destroys in order to repair, his minimum measure for liability is the same as for repairs. The minimum measure for liability is of one who whitens, combs, dyes, or spins is double the width of a sit. The one who weaves two threads, his minimum measure for the liability is a full sit. Rabbi Yehuda says one who traps a bird by driving it into a closet or a deer into a house is liable, but the Kachamim say one is liable for driving a bird into a closet or a deer into a house, a courtyard, or vivarium. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says not all vivaria are alike. This is the rule. If one requires further trapping, one is exempt. If it does not require further trapping, one is liable. Okay.
Okay. צבי שנכנס לבייס ונעל אחד בפניו חייב. Okay, so we just spoke about the deer that we caught inside a pen. It's easy to catch him or not easy to catch him. Okay, but if the deer comes into a house, the house for sure is a place where it can't run away easily. You can just walk up to it and catch it. Okay. ונעל אחד בפניו, and somebody came and closed the door behind it. So the animal ran into the house and you closed the door to keep the animal inside. That's a chiyuv. Okay. Now Lushnaim, what happens if two people close the door together? So this comes that's pater. That comes back to the thing of like two people carrying something in the Rishos Harabim, which doesn't need to be carried by two. Okay. Lo yachol echad lin'ol v'na lushnaim. Let's say it's a big heavy door and you need two people to close it, and then two people did close it. Okay, chayavin. And once again, we come back to chiyuv because that's the normal way of doing it. It's not a shinoi. That's a perfectly normal way of doing it. So, and of course, Rabbi Shimon is going to come in and say the same thing that he did when we were talking about carrying. And he said that's patur. You can't have two people doing one melacha, even if that's the normal way.
Right.
Okay, and the halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon in this. Right. Mishna Zayin, Yashava echad ala Pesach v'lo mil'ahu. So one guy sat down in front of the doorway, but there was still enough of a gap that the animal could escape. Okay, now comes the second guy, Yashava sheni u'milahu. So the second guy comes and sits down next to him. Ah, hasheni chayav. Only the second one is chayav, because the first one didn't do anything. He was just sitting in front of a door, and the animal could have gotten out if it wanted to. Second guy who comes and blocks the door, he's the guy who finished the malacha, and he is chayav. Yashav harishon ala pesach u'milahu. What happens if the first guy sat in front of the door and blocked it? Or ba sheni yashav betzido, and then the second guy came and sat. Well, it says betzido means next to him, but in practical terms, we must mean that he's sitting in front of him or behind him, to block the entrance. So the second guy really hasn't done anything. Afal pisha amad harishon v'halach lo. Even though the first guy sat down, he gets up and walks away. Harishon chayav v'hasheni pater. First guy is chayav, second guy is pater, because the second guy was just just sat down in front of a blocked door. Now that he is the blockage, doesn't matter. He didn't actually make the blockage. Ha lema ze domeh. He has another case where the halacha is going to be the same. Lenoel is beiso l'shamro. He closed his door in order just to protect his house. Right? He just walked into the house and didn't know anything about it, closed the door, and turned around and said, "V'nimtza tzvi shamor b'socho." Whoops, there's a tzvi inside here. So he didn't close the door to catch the animal. He just closed the door because that's what you do with your door. You walk in, you close your front door. Okay, and here he turns around and says, "Oh my gosh, I just trapped a deer." But he didn't have any clue that there was a deer inside there, and therefore he's completely pater, not even a chatas. He's just that's like an ones. So
Okay.
the same thing goes for the guy, for the two sitting one in front of the other. The second guy who comes didn't do anything wrong. Okay, next parak. Now on to Shmone Shratzim. Shmone Shratzim, there are the 8 species of sherets that are mentioned in the Torah that have a specific din in terms of tumah. Right? They've got a kula and a chumrah. That as opposed to other nevelas, if you have one of these dead creatures, the chumrah is that instead of being a kazayas, it's a dasha. It's a lentils bulk of any of these animals. If you touch it, you become tameh. Okay, but the kula is that there's no tumas masa. Normally, if you pick up a bag containing a piece of nevela, you become tamei from the nevela. But there's no tumas masa by a sheretz. That's just by the way, it's got nothing to do with our Mishnah. But for some reason, another commonality with the Shmona Shratzim that hatzadan v'achovel bahen chayav is that trapping them and wounding them even makes you chayav. As and ushash katzim v'ramasim hachovel bahen pater. But any other creepy crawly, if you cause a wound in them, you're pater because there's nothing productive out of it. As opposed to with the Shmona Shratzim, they've got a thicker skin. Let's just see the commentary over here says that all the time that the blood hasn't actually come out, there's no chavala, there's no so a bruise. It doesn't form a bruise. Um, um, as a so the bruise itself is considered a chavala, and it's told of shochet. And it's also techila of tzovea. There's another explanation is that since the skin is going to become colored because of the blood, it's also a tilde of tzovea. Okay. So anyway, carrying on. Hatzadan letzorech chayav shelo letzorech pater. If one traps them because he wants to use them, then for whatever reasons he wants to use them for, he wants a hedgehog skin or something like that. Okay, then he's chayav for it. Shelo letzorech. But if he just traps them because he doesn't, not because he needs them, but because maybe he wants them to be somewhere else, he doesn't want them in his house, then that would be pater. It could not. It's like let's say he just doesn't like lizards, so he traps the lizard in order to take it out the house. That trapping is not allowed lechatchila, but you pater from a chatas because it's not because you want it, it's because you don't want it. Chayav ofshir birshoso, if he has a deer or a bird that he's already caught, it's in a cage already. Hatzadan pater. If he tries to catch them now, he's pater because it's already in a cage. But if he wounds them, now he's chayav because that wasn't the hunting had already been done. It had already been trapped, but there's nothing. But in terms of the wounding, that's a new malacha.
Okay.
All right. Test in.
Okay. Test Zion. One who takes out a peddler's basket, though it contains many sorts, is liable for but one sin offering. Garden seeds, less than the equivalent of a dried fig. Rabbi Yehuda ben Basara says 5. Cucumber seeds, 2. Gourd seeds, 2. Egyptian bead seeds, 2. A live kosher locust, any size. Dead one, the size of a dried fig. A bird of the vineyards, whether alive or dead, of any size, where they store it for medicinal purposes. Rabbi Yehuda says also one who takes out a live non-kosher locust is liable for any size, since they store it for a child to play with. One who stored a seed to be used for sowing or a sample or for medicine and took it out on Shabbos is liable for any amount. Other people, however, are not liable except for those for its prescribed amount. And if he changed his mind and brought it in, he is not liable except for its prescribed amount. One who took out foodstuffs and placed them on the threshold, whether he himself subsequently returned and took them out or whether someone else took them out, he is exempt, since he did not perform his work at one time. One who took out a basket which was full of produce and placed it on the outer threshold, even though the greatest portion of the produce is outside, he is exempt until he takes it out with the entire basket. Okay. Koram. And we have Aleph Zion. If he set aside his Bikurim and sold his field, he brings but does not recite. And the other from the same kind he does not bring, but from another kind he brings and recites. Rabbi Yehuda says from the same kind he also brings and recites. If he set aside his Bikurim and they were plundered or they decayed, were stolen or lost, they were rendered unclean, he brings others in the stead but does not recite. And the others are not liable to be added to fifth. If they became unclean in the temple court, he scatters them and does not recite. And whence do we know that he is responsible for them until he brings them to the Temple Mount? because it is written, the first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring to the house of your Lord your God. This teaches us that he is responsible for them until he brings them to the Temple Mount. If he brought one kind of them recited and then brought another kind, he does not recite. Okay. Okay, we have Trumos. Olive, okay. One who does not separate truma from oil for olives, which are due to be crushed, or from wine for grapes that are due to be trodden. But if he did separate, his truma is truma. But he must separate again. The first by itself rendered meduma, and one is liable for it to the added fifth, but not the second. One may separate truma from oil for olives, which are due to be preserved, and from wine for grapes, which are due to be made into raisins. If one separated truma from oil for olives intended for eating, from olives for intended for eating, from wine for grapes intended for eating, or from grapes for grapes intended for eating, and then he decided to tread them, he need not separate truma. One may not separate truma from produce, which is in a finished state, for produce, which is in an unfinished state, or from produce in an unfinished state for produce in a finished state, or from produce in an unfinished state for produce in an unfinished state. But if he did separate truma, his truma is truma. Okay. And daros. Okay, chet. No, I'm sorry, hey, chet. If there is one deranged female in the town, or a Canaanite woman, or a female Kuthian, all the spittle in the town is tameh. Regarding someone upon whose garments a woman tread, or who sat with him on a boat, if he recognizes him as someone who eats truma, his garments are tahor. But if not, he must ask her. If a single witness says that one was rendered tameh, and that person says I was not rendered tameh, he is deemed tahor. If two witnesses say you were rendered tameh, and he says I was not rendered tameh, Meir rules him tameh, but they can't come and say he is believed through himself. If a single witness says that he was rendered tameh, and two witnesses say that he was not rendered tameh, he is deemed tahor, whether in a private domain or a public domain. If two witnesses say that he was rendered tameh, and a single witness says that he was not rendered tameh, he is deemed tameh, whether in a private or a public domain. If a single witness says that he was rendered tameh, another single witness says that he was not rendered tameh, or if a woman says that he was rendered tameh by another woman says that he was not rendered tameh in a private domain, he is deemed tahor in the public domain, and he is his name tameh in the public domain, and he is deemed tahor. And there's one more, and that is regarding a place which was a private domain and became a public domain, and then again became a private domain. When it is a private domain, its two uncertainties are ruled tameh. When it is a public domain, its two uncertainties are ruled tahor. If a terminally ill patient was in a private domain and they took him out to a public domain and then returned him to a private domain while he is in the private domain, his two uncertainties are ruled tameh. When he is in the public domain, his two uncertainties are ruled tahor, and Reb Shimon says the public domain interrupts.
Okay.
Okay, Zion Bet. The initiation offerings were brought like the matzah of the Todah offering, kalos, richichim, or revucha. That of the Nazar consisted of two parts of the matzah of the Todah offering, kalos and richichim, but it has no revucha. Thus, it consists of 10 Jerusalem calves, which equals 6 esabrones, and the excess. From all of them he would take 1/10 for truma, as he stated, and he shall bring from it one for every offering as a truma offering to Hashem. One that he may not take broken from every offering, on all the offerings should be equal, and that he should not take from one offering for another. To the Kohen who throws the blood of the shalom offering shall it belong, and the remainder is eaten by the owner. If one slaughtered the Todah offering inside while its loaves were outside the wall, the bread is not sanctified. If he slaughtered it before they become crusted in the oven, or if they were all crusted except for one, the bread is not sanctified. If he slaughtered it for beyond the time or for outside the place, the bread is sanctified. And if he slaughtered it and it was found to be a treifa, the bread is not sanctified. If he slaughtered it and it was found to be blemished, Eliezer says it is sanctified. But the comments say it is not sanctified, and if he slaughtered it for designation other than its own, so too the initiation ram, and so too the 2 lambs of Shavuos, which are one slaughtered for a designation other than their own, the bread is not sanctified. If libations were sanctified in a vessel, and the sacrifice is found to be invalid, if there's another sacrifice present, they are offered with it. If not, they become invalid by being left overnight. The offspring of a Todah offering is Tamora, or one who set aside a Todah offering and it was lost and then set aside another place, do not require bread, as it states, and he shall offer with the sacrificing of the Todah offering. The Todah offering requires bread, but neither its offspring nor replacement nor Tamora requires bread. Okay. And we have the door. Okay. Test. They can find grounds to annul a person's neder by reason of its own honor or the honor of his children, or they say to him, if you would have known that tomorrow they would say about you, such is the habit of so and so, he divorces his wives, and about your daughters they will say they are the daughters of a divorced woman. And what did their mother see to bring about her divorce? Would you have vowed? If he said, I had not known that this would be so, I would not have vowed. It is permitted. No, thereupon Reb Israel permitted her at the time. Reb Israel repped and said, the daughters of Israel are beautiful, but poverty makes them ugly. Reb Israel died, the daughters of Israel raised a lament, saying, daughters of Israel, weep over Reb Israel. And so too he says about Shaul, daughters of Israel, weep over Shaul. Okay. Sorry. Okay. A Nahara who is betrothed, the father and a husband revoke her Nedarim. If the father revoked a neder, but the husband did not revoke it, or if the husband revoked it, but the father did not revoke it, it is revoked. Certainly this is so, and if one of them confirmed the neder. If the father dies, the sole right does not fall to the husband.
That's it.
I
Done.
just
Yeah.
That's it. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for
Okay. Have
the
a good
meeting.
day.
Well, I hope to see you at 7:45. Yeah, I wasn't nothing to do about it anymore. Missiles here, since they have the ceasefire, so to speak. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that it hasn't lasted so well so far.
I
So,
know. And the Houthis are still around. So yeah, All right, we'll see. Have a great day. Thank
day.
you.